discussing the issues of our community and this country and the world from where we sit. I'm joined by Dr. Leonard Thompson, the third, who is our partner in this, and we're excited to be a part of GOD Radio and have this partnership. So, Dr. Thompson, good evening to you.
Good evening to you, sir. We are so excited to be here once again on a Wednesday evening. As always, we're going to always be trying to try out new technology and see how it goes and what it looks like. And so we're excited about this evening from the desk of the editor. So much is going on, and I am very just surprised that the year is just a third of the way through, and yet and still we have all this stuff going on.
Yes, yes.
So I'm gonna let you break in and just let's just talk about it.
Well, we do have a lot going on. Right now, we have too much attention being given to former President Trump. The news people are just playing it to death, going over and over and over the significance of what happened with him. He's still facing other indictments. We have a victory for the progressives in Wisconsin, where a woman was elected to the Supreme Court in spite the MAGA movement. And we have all of this discussion as we see people coming out in support of the former president, trying to make the indictment a conspiracy when what he's being given is supposedly the same treatment as other Americans. However, even that in the booking process was not complete because everyone else would have had a picture made. They would have been in handcuffs, and he didn't have a picture. He cost the city of New York a tremendous amount of money with 25,000 officers on duty through this whole process, as if someone was going to try to do something to him. But I guess after January 6th, no one was taking any chances, not knowing what that conservative right element will do. They have shown that they are armed, that they are pro-violence, that they think that they have a right to overthrow and change the laws of this country. And we don't want to lose track of what's taking place, that even as this is happening in the state of Tennessee, where those young people were killed along with the staff members a week ago, we see a movement in the legislature to expel three Democratic members in a Republican-controlled legislature because they were pro-support for gun control. And so we got a lot of issues. We see people no longer functioning from the standpoint of a democracy and what's good for the nation as a whole. But the racism is at the core of all that we see happening. There's this element that cannot stand the browning of America, the rising of people of color in this country in terms of political positions and social positions, and they just can't handle it. You know, it kind of reminds you of the story in the Bible where after Stephen started preaching the gospel, the people jumped on him and biting him and stuff before they killed him because they just couldn't handle the word. And so we have these people, mostly white conservatives, who cannot handle the idea that America is changing and that they are doing everything they can, cheating from falsification of electorates to gentrification, which is being done in an illegal manner and going to be challenged in courts, to trying to wipe us out of history, banning books. Florida has become the next state to join the concealed carry group. I think of some 30 states with no training or paperwork required as we arm ourselves. And we now have more guns in America than we have people. So there's a lot going on, Dr. Thompson, and I just wanted to touch on some of it.
You know, one of the things about it is that we are still finding every day. I think we're at over 100 shootings, mass shootings to date this year, and we're still yet saying what needs to be done, what should be done. I'm just concerned that that the rhetoric is over, And we have to find a way to get past the rhetoric and get down to the nitty gritty, and that is we need to have gun control.
Well, we do need gun control, and the resistance to gun control is a fear, and they try to hang it on the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. We don't even need the militia element that's in that language of that provision because, unlike the days when it was passed, we now have a militia, if you will, a national guard in every state.
Mm-hmm.
There's this fear that if the government can get control of everyone's guns, then the people will have no recourse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that does not and should not include this obsession that we have with the AK 47.
Yeah.
And because it is a weapon of warfare, it should not be available, but yet we can walk in stores and see them still being sold every day legally to people. And the harm that's done, if people could see what one of the bullets from that gun does, like they alluded to in Valdez, Texas, they would maybe give second thought.
Yeah, one of the things that this greatly disturbs me is that we're seeing more and more gun violence, and we're seeing because of mental health issues. Not only are we seeing the gun violence, but we're also seeing suicides by gun. And just recently, I want to kind of lean towards this topic. Everybody wants to be a social media influencer. Everybody wants to try to make money by doing pranks and practical jokes. Just recently, a young man pulled a prank on a person in a store, and he startled the person. The person pulled out a gun and shot
Really?
him. And he fortunately he survived, and he will live again. His father was online saying, "Well, everything was harmless, everything was in fun, and nobody should lose their life off of pulling a prank." But some of the pranks are inappropriate. Some of the pranks startle people. And another man, just maybe about 2 months before them, pulled a similar stunt and got shot, and he lost his life. So I need people to understand that just because it might be funny to you, and just because you think that it'll make good media and social media, ultimately some of the things that you're doing will cost you your life. And we have to start setting boundaries.
Well, again, racism is a key factor here, Dr. Thompson,
Mm-hmm.
because when white kids do those kind of things, then they're just kid pranks. If a black kid does the same thing, it's a major offense. He goes to jail. White kid can steal a family car, drive around, the cops will bring him back home, and it's okay. Black kid, he gonna be charged with everything that goes with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still racism, and the other part of the racism is that people have not taught their kids fundamental responsibilities, courtesy for the life, and respect for others.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it every day. You see people chasing little white kids in the store, in the airport. The kid is crying, and the parents trying to beg and stroke them. Oh, don't do Jonathan and Catherine and when we grew up, we didn't have all that problem. You did something, your mama and daddy hit you, gave you the backhand or the look, and that was it. And so all of this is the lack of discipline,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of control, the me, myself, and I movement,
Mm-hmm.
the absence of God in terms of decision making, lifestyle, the things that we do. We're trying to engage in what a former mayor of D.C. Used to call his situation ethics. That if it's okay and it serves my purpose, then it's all right. It doesn't have to be a moral question. It's okay. And but that situation ethics is a spin-off on something that Aristotle started. And it's unfortunate because when we start living without concern for other people, then we're in trouble. We see it every day,
Mm-hmm.
from the post office to people who just don't care about folks in line behind them, the banks, the people who cut lines. It's just, it disturbs me because when I look in contrast at a country like North Korea, and I look at a documentary that they had on showing the discipline of the children, the way they are learning, the military drills like we had when I was growing up, and the order to education and study. You look in countries like Japan where there's a struggle even before you're 4 years old in terms of what school you're going to get in. And then you come to America and everything is just him, ha, ho, ho. And it is the decay of a great nation following historical patterns that 21 great civilizations in the history of man have collapsed from within. And we're on track to be 22.
Well, one of the things about it is that, you know, I'll tell people on my watch, I'm going to do my best to make sure that we can begin to move forward and be really begin to have some serious dialogue. I just want to jump in. We're talking about the moral decay of our nation, the moral decay of our country, and also our local and our city governments. We're seeing a lot of moral decay that continues to be an issue. Just recently, one of our leaders had to step down due to some indiscretions, and now everybody wants to vie for that seat. Now, I just got to ask the question, Dr. Warren. What do you think? Do you think that seat's going to be appointed, or is there going to be an open election?
Well, we were having part of this discussion this week on Black Men and Women United. I am hoping that the supervisors go for the special election. I think it would be a mistake to do the appointment because our community does not have the political clout or muster to rally the 3 votes needed to make it take place. And so without that, we're going to end up with some favoritism. There are some people already being discussed by the County Democratic Club in terms of, and in San Diego, we need to understand that 90% of the people are not concerned about us or how we think.
Mm-hmm.
We are indeed a tale of 2 cities, and
Mm-hmm.
we are a black city and we are a white city. And a lot of us in the black city never experienced the white city. We think the white city is La Jolla, but it's not. The white city is all around us. We're just not a part of the discussion or the activities or even the tourism dollars that come here
Mm-hmm.
that we see happening. So we seem to be comfortable being invisible, and that's unfortunate.
Well, one of the things, as we begin to look at it, I know that a lot of times that we paint it as black and white, but the Latino population, the Asian population, the Filipino, and the Pacific Islander population are now vying for some of the same seats that used to be designated for African Americans or for the African American community. How do we still maintain power and presence if we are losing seats to the other groups that are now banding together to go after the seats that were normally designated?
Well, we don't. And unfortunately, we don't because we are buying, drinking the Kool Aid and thinking that we don't count. When in our form of government, every vote counts. There's no such thing as an unnecessary vote. If you don't believe it, let an election come down to a draw and see it doesn't take several votes. All it does is take 1 vote
Mm-hmm.
to make the difference. And so we are not participating on that scale anymore. And see, here's another difference. The Latino community is galvanized and activated because they are, as far as they're concerned, where we were in the height of the civil rights movement. Their goal is to get their relatives into this country, mom, dad, cousins, whoever is left outside. They want them to come and have the good life. And there's nothing wrong with people wanting the best for their families. And then those who get here, they understand the process. They understand that education is the key, and so hard work. And so they work hard. They know oftentimes they're paid less, but they accept that. And they spread their dollars around because of how they shop in terms of their community. We've abandoned all of that. I mean, 90% of us are just dealing with ourselves, and that's sufficient. While other people are working together, you let a Latino get into or Asian into a position where they can make a decision on the next hire, and it's not going to be who is the best person. It's going to be someone that is a member of their community. It's human
Yes,
nature.
and I think that's the key thing. Their community. Um, But people believe and have said many times that no one can win an election without the black vote. Is that still true today?
Well, I think it is true so far, and everybody understands that except black folks.
Okay.
There's no question that Biden wouldn't be president without the black vote.
Okay.
At the same time, we've been dealt a bad blow by who is supposed to be a good governor. The governor should have appointed Barbara Lee to fill Kamala Harris's position, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And he put Padilla in there, who would have been able to win in a special election anyhow. Now Barbara has to struggle to try and take Diane's seat. Adam Schiff has already declared for it. Fortunately, we have a testimony of possibilities in the election of Karen Bass
Mm-hmm.
because she beat a billionaire out to become the mayor of LA. And so that's significant in itself. But we don't have people registering to vote, Dr. Thompson.
Okay.
We keep voter registration cards on our desks. I haven't had anybody come in and ask for one, I guess, since before the last election.
Well, let me just say that everybody is talking about running. Everybody is talking about being the right representative. Let's go through an exercise, Dr. Warren. There's a vetting process that I always say must take place, but I don't think a lot of people understand what a vetting process look like and what are the key questions that should be asked. So let's just go and do this. Let's talk about the top 10 questions that should be asked to a person that is being vetted to run for any office.
Well, we can start off telling you, first of all, they're going to look at your credit report and
Okay.
they're going to see who you owe and they're going to expose every debt that you have because if they can expose your debts, then they can give the inference that if you get in power, you'll be using it for personal gain. So that's going to be one of the things. They're going to look at your taxes and did you file taxes in the last 10 years? And they're going to look at your voter registration record. When did you last vote? When did you last register? Where do you live? Okay, what kind of car do you drive? What does your family do? Are your kids in trouble in jail? Is Are you and your wife broke up and separated? And do you have a job? And what kind of job do you have? And what do your coworkers think about you? And they're going to do what I call a rotor rooter. They're going to bend you over and run the light up and see everything they can find. And then we have a scenario where many times the people who could qualify don't want to run because they don't want to be exposed to the personal declaration of their affairs.
Yeah.
Okay, and so these are some of the issues. Ironically, there was a time about 30, 40 years ago that political office was the key for black folks to step out of the poverty scenario and move halfway into the mainstream. But the problem is that once you get elected, that if you do anything that's of personal benefit, then that's a conflict of interest. And so the question is, do you need to be elected? Or, we don't do like in some cities, like in Dallas, Texas, for instance, one of my favorite examples. The black people there pull together. If you want to run for office and you get elected, well, the people who help put you in office, they're going to find a business venture for you someplace else
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't lose out on the money.
Yeah.
That was the case with the Dallas Fort Worth Airport Authority. The black people who ran, they didn't compete for local stuff, but they were given business elsewhere. And so we still haven't learned to share. Most of the time, my phone rings with somebody that I haven't spoken to in 5 or 10 years, and they're not calling to see how I'm doing. They're calling because I knew them once upon a time and they want a favor. Well, I don't owe you any favors. You haven't done anything for yourself or anyone. I spend time each day. I try to take a moment. If I think about someone in our community who's older and I haven't seen a person cross my mind, I stop and pick up the phone and I call and say, how you doing? Don't want anything, just want you to know you're being thought about. And that makes a difference. That's why my late wife and I, we could always get access to the White House, no matter who the president was, because the people that we knew in the White House in any administration knew that if we called, it was never for ourselves. It was for an effort to help someone else. And so we've lost all of that.
Well, Dr. Warren, I think that one of the things that in the vetting process, what people don't pay attention to, but you must now, and that is they're going to vet your social media. And they're going to go back to when you first started on social media, and they're going to go through it with a fine tooth comb. And that is where I think a lot of people are making their biggest mistakes is that they're putting everything on social media. And even if you put your different names, eventually they find it.
Well, I have several thousand, and one of the things they find about my social media is that I don't respond to it. I don't respond to LinkedIn, a line, whatever it is, Facebook, and all that. I mean, nobody needs to know when you went to the bathroom and what you ate this morning, and all this is just it's a lot of lonely people that need to get a life out there. And these people who want to run for office, I like to remind them of an old Indian adage that I often repeat here is that he who leads where no one follows merely goes for a walk. And we got a lot of people trying to make this a popularity contest
Mm-hmm.
that want to run. And people come to me, well, I want to run for office. I don't want to talk to you if you want to run for office. I want to know what you did before you decided that you wanted to run for office. Were you of service to someone? Did you help someone? Were you doing something? Not, oh, I want to serve. But I have people calling me, oh, I want to talk to you because I don't want to talk to you. What are you going
Yeah,
to tell me? I'm looking, I can't hear what you say for seeing what you haven't done.
yeah. So one of the things that when we look at vetting people for office, we don't want to vet you just when you decide that you want to be involved. We want to see that you are already involved
There
and
you
that
go.
the movement into the position will literally allow you to continue the efforts of helping the community. Number two is we're not looking for someone that have great sound bites or does good social media. We're looking for people that truly have the heart for the people. Thus, whatever you do is truly in a development of people, a growth of people. And I'm as openly. I have a person that I call the candidate. Like every time I talk to her, I say, "Hello, candidate," because I really believe that she has done the work as a leader in our community without pay, without the position, and yet it still has made tremendous strides. But again, trying to get people to run and then putting themselves in this fishbowl. And sometimes once you get in office, it limits what you really can do because you have to then follow so many of the
Yeah,
protocols.
you become part of the problem. But the person that you call a candidate is to me the role model of the kind of person that should be put in office. And because this person does so much with so little, and they're just concerned. And I'm a newspaper, and I can't keep up with all the stuff that they keep up with. I think it's just phenomenal. And so, when all these people finish coming forth, and I must mention that we mentioned on Black Men and Women United, we asked that people, head folks, or they wanted to run or whatever, we asked them to be in touch with the paper, and we were going to call a series of meetings at our office in the evening for people to come and for us to have those discussions. We did this some time ago. We had people come in and we sat and we talked about who should run and how they should run. And of course, the people that should serve, most likely to serve, are those who really don't want to serve
Yeah,
because it's kind of like God calls the one that doesn't want to preach to the ministry.
yeah,
And he don't need the one that wants to preach because they too full of themselves for him to be able
yeah,
to have anything to say with it. I will tell you this though, once we get all of these people out here who make their names, I am going to be merciless in terms of name by name. I'm going to identify why you shouldn't run and you shouldn't be there. And what have you done lately for anybody other than yourself?
yeah,
I'm just going to call it like it is.
yeah.
So if you got thin skin, you don't want to be running for office. It's like getting into a fight. You're getting in the ring and you expect not to be hit.
Yeah.
It's not possible. The two things don't go together.
Yeah, but one of the things that I will say is that We definitely want to vet a good candidate. We definitely want to see people run that really truly have a heart for the community, and we know that they have a heart for the community because they have been serving without the title. And we really want to see people move in a positive direction. We still have to get voter registration. We still have to get our young people to vote. We still have to be conscious of what is taking place because a lot of stuff is taking place in our city, from the whole redevelopment of Civic Plaza and City Hall and everything else, from basically even the 9 blocks.
Yes.
There's so much happening along the trolley lines and so much that are happening in our community. And so the question comes in, are you going to be a part of the problem or the solution? And so it's not about who you put in office because a lot of times people get in office and they forget who put them there.
Well, let's remember something, Dr. Thompson. As we talk about what people are going to be able to do, they got to be coalition builders. They got to be able to work with other people across the aisle. And that doesn't mean that they got to be great compromisers, but you have to be able to respect others.
Mhm.
I cannot think of 5 people um, that we know in this community with some visibility that I would send any one of them down in a special election. And I also want us to remember that in most elections that we've had in the fourth district, city council district, and we haven't even gone into the numbers for the Board of Supervisors, fourth district, which overlaps,
Mhm.
that we normally have less than 10,000 people voting.
Mhm.
Less than 10,000 people bother
Yeah.
to vote.
Yeah.
And don't let it be cloudy or chilly,
Mhm.
and that number is going to be down even more,
Yeah.
okay? And we offer to drive people to the polls and give them rides and a whole bit,
Mhm.
and the folks are just sitting there empty handed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the a reality.
Yeah. There was a joke out that said, um, um, a man was saying, "Let me tell you what a perfect wife look like. First of all, she's got to be funny, and second of all, she has to be a good cook. Second of all, she has to make me feel loved." And he said, and then he said, the fourth thing is that she is appealing to the eye. And he said, now once you get all 4 of those things, you got a great wife. And he said, now the fifth thing is don't tell the other four about each other. And I started laughing because sometimes when you begin to build a person that is running for office, they might not have all the bells and whistles, but if they build and they come with a good team, they become a perfect candidate. And so some people might be great on the front end. Some people might be the ones that handle the business and are good at chief of staff. The other ones are good at community relations. But people have to realize that just because you got elected, you must have a good team.
Well, Dr. Thompson, for the past 35 years, close to 40, because the way I sit with the newspaper, I've seen everybody in this town who's doing something. I know a little bit about everybody who has done some things I've published, some things I haven't published and wouldn't publish. And so I have a real good feel for people as they've gone through the metamorphosis of evolving. And I can think of several people that might throw their hats in the ring, and I will hope to talk to them personally to tell them why they shouldn't. Not that they're going to listen, but they're going to go on out there. The other big danger is that if we get too many people splitting the vote, then the other folks are going to walk right in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so not only do we have the fourth supervisorial district seat, we know that with Tony Atkins terming out as president of the Senate, that Dr. Weber, Secretary of State, would like to see her daughter move up from Assembly to Senate. And many people feel in the community you haven't even been in the Assembly long enough to do. And then someone is making a statement, well, we only have one doctor in the Senate. Well, the Senate is not an extension of the American Medical Association. And so the people going into these positions are supposed to be there because they have a desire to serve. and I can think of some elected officials in San Diego County, and the ones I'm about to speak are black because I've had conversations with the white and others, but there's still some people in office that I've never spoken with. They've never even acknowledged voice and viewpoint. And so I wonder if you can't deal with the institutions of a community, then how are you going to represent it? We don't need a bunch of people on the Sunday before election showing up at your church smiling.
Hmm.
Okay, if they do, they can just take a seat because that's not going to work. And so we just need to get real. We need to get real with these political clubs we have.
Hmm.
Um, Martin Luther King Democratic Club is a joke. It doesn't function as it could. Now we have a women's Democratic Club, and I was sharing with someone, you have no idea of how political clubs operate uh, or entities operate in California, because first of all, in San Diego County in particular, there are no consequences for the decisions that you make.
Hmm.
In other cities and counties, there are consequences. If you go with the system or you buck the system,
Hmm.
there are consequences. Here, everybody just does what they want. And so it kind of makes it meaningless.
Hmm.
And, I don't lose any sleep over it, but it's just sad.
Well, Dr. Warren, we are an open forum. We're halfway through. The number here is 858-251-6111. Again, 858-251-6111. We want to let you know that this is an open forum that you can call in, ask questions, or add to the discussion. But please note that it is supposed to be asking of a question. It is not a debate. If we find out that you want to debate, we will hit the mute button and continue on with the story. But we do want to hear from you. So I'm just going to put it out there. The supervisory election will probably come up. It will start probably be a special election. Who do you think should run and why? And what should be the vetting process? Now, the candidate, which I'm not going to call her name, already knows that I think that she should go on and put their hat in the ring. But she is a lethal weapon behind the scenes, and I think she's going to stay right there. So, Dr. Warren, you said that you don't have anybody on your short list.
No, I don't. I don't
Okay.
have a short list
Okay.
because I know all of the people that have been discussed and mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and some people have come to me talking about other folks. But I think that one of the first requirements is, and I've spent over 50 years in politics, and I've won elections and I've lost elections on both coasts. And one of the things that you need to be able to do is you need to be able to talk to people.
Yeah.
And if you can't talk to somebody that you dislike, well, you ain't got no business running for office because your dislike's gonna get you in trouble.
Yeah. And that's the one thing. And when you get in office, you can't avoid people that challenge you. You know what I'm saying? You can't get angry every time that one person, that comes up and they become like that gnat that just keeps flying around you and you can't get rid of them because every time you swipe, you miss them.
Well, there are legal consequences too, Dr. Thompson. There's a statute called malfeasance in office.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get elected, and some people don't notice and they make the mistake, like a former mayor told some pastors, and I'm so sorry I wasn't in town for the meeting, that since they objected to, didn't support him when his daughter came out the closet and stuff, that he didn't want to hear what they had to say. You know, I beg someone elected to tell me something like that because there's the Attorney General's office. There's a complaint that's just waiting to be filed, and you don't have the ability to pick and choose who you represent if you get elected.
Yeah.
And so people don't understand. They're shooting from the hip. Most of the people running for office, they have no idea about San Diego County, the Board of Supervisors, the districts, the size of the county, and the issues in the county, the land use plans, and all these things. And I was sharing with Black Men and Women United the other morning that when I first came to San Diego, the first job I had was with the county council, where I drafted opinions that dealt with the county as a whole. It's a huge county
Mm-hmm.
with lots of issues in it. Okay, 17 cities, the unincorporated stuff is big. The second position I held was with the city attorney's office, and there's another big world. And all of these worlds are bigger than criminal things. There are civil litigation issues that go to make up how we live and function.
Hmm.
And I think the county was very wise in asking Helen Robin Myers to extend her time during this transition. The Fletcher is going to step down as of May 15th. And under the rules, they either make an appointment or they have to have a special election within 75 days. And so that the void is bigger than just the county. Let's understand that he stepped down from chairing the Metropolitan Transit Board. The last person that we had with such power was Gomez when she was president of the city council, chair of the Metropolitan Transit system, and she was chairperson of Sandag. One person with three positions of power and influence. And so we need to just be conscious of how these things are going to work for us.
Yes, and again, the platform is available for us to have real dialogue and real conversations. I believe that we have to, if you're planning to run or if you desire to serve in different posts, I truly believe that you have to come to the constituents that you represent, even when it is uncomfortable. There are some times that we have advocates and activists that have made people angry and made people mad, but the bottom line is that they're still there. And you still have to have a conversation with them. You still have to indulge even when you disagree when you're an elected official. Now, I do, like I said, the reason why I can't be an elected official because there's certain things that take place with elected officials and people and those things that if you come over to my neighborhood and do it, it won't be the same story. You know what I'm saying? Accidental pit bull released. We don't know how he got out. You know what I'm saying? and be chasing everybody down the street and be like saying he tried to bite us, and then we show a picture of the pit bull with no teeth, saying he got bad teeth in case so he didn't have no teeth. He just wanted to lick and play with you.
Yeah, well, you don't want to go there because they would take that would become more important than any job
Yeah,
that you were trying to do,
yeah,
and that's mostly unfortunate. Um, like we said, now this is 48 hours since we issued the call for people to come out and suggest that they want to be a part of a conversation. We haven't heard from anyone. We haven't had any calls, and I know that some of these people had their own little cliques, and
yeah,
their attitude, starting off wrong, is I don't need to talk to nobody but us because we can make it happen, and it's not going to happen. I personally am not going to lose any sleep over whatever they do, because from my standpoint, been there, done that, and if you're interested in the quality of life, then get involved. If you're just interested in yourself, it's going to tell,
yeah.
and that's the reality.
I'm not gonna lose any sleep, but I do want to try to make it help us not have to do cleanup behind people because we already know that they were gonna be messy or that. And Miss Francine said, "Pookie at your bedside." Meaning that if you mess up with the wrong people, you'll wake up and there'll be somebody in your house saying, "What did you say?"
And that's the reality too.
Yeah, so I always tell
Yeah,
people certain people don't should never run because
no.
their temperament is if you come for me, I'm coming right back at you.
Well, yeah, because I remember, I won't call names, but I remember a person who ran for office in Harlem and got elected, and they thought that they could get up and make speeches about a number of things in the community because the people before them had, and one long after that, they had a knock on their door one night, and the person said, "We'll tell you what you can talk about, what you can't talk about, when you can talk." Okay, and there are some real moments that take
Mm-hmm,
place that let you know that you're not in charge.
mm-hmm,
There are other people, so there has to be a commitment that says if it's right, I'm going to stand up for it, like Dr. King did.
mm-hmm.
Yesterday was the 55th anniversary of the his assassination,
Yeah,
and I wrote an editorial this week about remembering Dr. King and what he died for and what he stood for, and so many of us, this is not 55 years ago when we were burning cities.
mm-hmm,
Today we have an opportunity to have calm, rational, planned reaction to the same problems that he died for. They're still ongoing,
Mm.
and we're on recess.
Yeah.
We're on recess, and we got a generation, Dr. Thompson. Um, you just had a birthday,
Yes, sir.
okay, and so you were 3 years old when Dr. King was killed,
Yes, sir. The day
okay.
after my third birthday.
Yep, you see, and I remember so well the day because when he was killed, it was a day when my father had a heart attack. The military called me up to active duty. I couldn't be there with my family. I had like hours to report, and I was a federal troop in the nation's capital for 20 some days, uh, trying to put down riots and all kinds of civil disturbance that now are just film clips for us.
Yeah.
So the stuff is very real,
Yeah.
and so there are few and few of us left that remember as we die out. If we don't talk about what happened and the price that was paid,
Hmm.
it's just like God mandating in Genesis the Passover,
Hmm.
so that the generations to come would know through the bitter bread and the bitter cup and the herbs that they would know what others suffered,
Yeah.
and we're getting away from that today.
Well, one of the things, Dr. Warren, I was 3 years old, but I still remember the family huddled around the TV. And I remember my grandmother and my mother crying, and Mahalia Jackson singing,
Yeah.
and thousands of people at the memorial service. And I
Mm.
said, wow, I didn't know. And my mother said something about Dr. King. I remember that piece, but the reality is I didn't live through the civil rights movement. I'm really a 65, 70 baby. So 70s is when I really knew when the Afro and,
Yeah.
all the other things when we were coming out. But the bottom line is that we have stifled the growth of our community, of our culture, because at some point we decided to, one, make it so easy that now our children don't appreciate the struggle.
No, they don't. I mean, they got cell phones and TVs and cars and all kinds of stuff that we didn't have coming up. I grew up without a television or a telephone in the house, and my kids grew up with too many and too much of both. And so we called ourselves helping them, and we were just weakening them
Mm-hmm.
by giving them more than they should have had. But again, uh, we should be old enough to make some wise decisions now.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's the key. Is what are we going to do at this point? And I still see, from where I sit, I see people making all kinds of moves concerning these seats. Some going to try to sell out and make it an appointment so that they can get appointed to it at any cost. And it's unfortunate because we've only had one black supervisor that I know of, Leon Williams, and we weren't represented well in terms of the success. So this is the first time the Democrats have controlled, even though it's nonpartisan. And so we just got some real issues, Dr. Thompson, and I don't know. Um, we so many issues beyond this, the increase in the homelessness, the people on the streets, and the states talking about it. California has 177,000 homeless people, the largest population in the country in terms of a state. And I hear people talking about trying to do something for this issue, but I don't see them dealing with the core issue. The core issue is what? It's rental protection. It's something about landlords and the greed and the increases. And as long as they can increase and manipulate who is able to get where, the number of people without shelter is going to increase.
Well, let me ask you this question. This is this a Some people believe this, and some people believe that our homeless population is consistently increasing because of the fact that the word is getting out to other states to send them to San Diego because there's more services down there, and they're just shipping them to the edge of the city and dropping them off.
Well, I don't know if they're shipping people to the edge of the city. I remember years ago, you didn't have homeless people on Coronado because they'd round them up every evening and bring them over the bridge. and leave them over here. The late Councilman George Stevens used to make the observation that this was a perfect place to be homeless because you could always get a taco, and the weather didn't get that bad that often, and so people, fell for those things. But we do see an increase downtown. I mean, the shelters, the tents. It looks like L.A.
Hmm.
Homeless area. I mean, they're all over the place, and not everybody wants shelter. Not everybody wants to be housed.
Hmm.
So we just got a lot of issues, and we just had a mandate. I think come down. I see where there was a plan from the governor to spend billions of dollars creating housing
Tiny
for
homes.
mentally ill people, and
Hmm.
a number of those units are throughout the state.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting back to something that we had when Ronald Reagan was president. He was the
Hmm.
one that took the benefits and put all the homeless people on the street and
Hmm.
started this process in the first place, because it wasn't like that before him. But those who have rarely care about the ones who don't have, so that's the issue.
So let me ask you this: do we have a heavy population of homeless people downtown because we have so many rescue missions and Father Joe's and all those services that are downtown, high rise apartments that are for low income, certain hotels for that? If we move those services to, say, for instance, Santee, do we feel like the homeless would move that direction?
Oh no, 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 no! It's not even that simple. We already have homeless areas in East County, like the 24-hour space out Mollison that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's countywide in terms of people who are unsheltered at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We got unsheltered people right there on the verge of Talmadge University, and they're not all black. They're white, they're men, they're women, they're older, and we don't know what the issue is. Some people have their pets and they won't go into a shelter because shelters won't let the pets come
Mm-hmm.
with them, so they stay on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, it's a real issue. There are some services downtown, but a lot of people don't partake of the services. They don't want the services. So I don't know. Our churches used to do more. There was a time that we opened up for shelters. We don't do that anymore. We don't participate. I've made this statement a few weeks ago that we have people getting comfortable with the homeless issue to the extent that they're getting anesthetized toward it, and they don't think they have to be concerned about it.
Yeah.
And that's a tragedy.
Yeah, and I think what's so tragic about it is that there's the individuals, but the families that are suffering when they have to go in the shelters, the mothers and the fathers, and being cooped up in just one room, and a lot of them um, desire to work. A lot of them are working. You know what I'm saying?
And,
But
and
just
some
can't afford it.
people, some of the homeless people have jobs, and they're living in their cars because they couldn't pay the rent. They lost that. Some of their cars are being, repossessed or impounded for different reasons. So a lot of hardships. And some people, if they, we had an issue of recurring hospitalization of homeless people to the extent that under the Affordable Care Act, they start putting some penalties in
Hmm.
if things weren't done to maximize some kind of treatment. So it's a big issue, and we got a lot of issues. The homelessness is an issue. Um, we still have discrimination in terms of employment. You have a city saying we got 2,000 jobs, and yet you have people being screened out. And let's not forget that during the pandemic, because of the rental freeze, a lot of evictions were put on hold. Once that mandate expired, those evictions went forth. Those people now have evictions on their records. And if you're trying to rent a place and
Hmm.
you have an eviction on your record, then people will not rent to you.
Exactly.
And so it gets compounded, and you're not really solving the problem. Yet we have all of this money, and we have a housing czar and then diversity and inclusion, and all these people with these positions trying to figure out what they're doing, and it's not being done.
my question is that do we actually have a committee that is made up of homeless people?
Well, that was one of the ideas that Reverend Harris floated the other day at his meeting, that there should be a commission on the homeless made up of homeless people. But also, last year there was a special report done by the county, and it was I did stories on it. It highlighted the plight of homelessness among Black San Diegans,
Uh-huh.
and it talked about the need for those people who were the victims to be more involved in the process,
Hmm.
because so many times the records show that the people handling their cases didn't look like them
Hmm.
and had no sympathy for them, and it just exacerbated the problem.
Yeah. And so I think that we have to, if we don't have the answer, we have to go to the people that are going through it and really make some inroads. There are some people that got homeless because they just made bad decisions. Some with mental health, and I think that we need to literally kind of break it down and see how many people are homeless because they got evicted, how many people are homeless because of mental health issues, how many people are homeless because they're the vets or whatever. I think that we need to really know who we're really dealing with, and I know they've tried to do surveys, but have they disaggregated the data and really began to impact it?
Well, the tenant association, I've done articles with them, and they've got all kind of horror stories in terms of homeless situations. I remember one in particular that stands out, that there were three families, Latino families, that came together to live in a one-bedroom apartment in National City, and they did that because they wanted to keep their children in the school that was there.
Yeah.
And if they did maintain that address, but I mean, the amount of rent just keeps going up. There's all kinds of problems. I know people in National City that don't have heat in the midst of this issue, and so that you have to care to do what you were talking about, Dr. Thompson.
Yeah.
And I think the churches could get more involved in terms of vetting the people to see about those situations.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a pastor, I've seen it happen that when you open the door, 95% of the people who come to you, they're not interested in the church. They're only interested in what they can get from you, and they don't care beyond that.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear any words about outreach or ministry or anything about God. It's just give me what you got and let me go.
Yeah.
And of course, people don't want to do that, so that gets to be a problem.
Well, Dr. Warren, it's been a great discussion tonight. This is from the desk of the editor. Want to thank all of you for tuning in. We will be having some more great discussion, more people coming to you next week right here.